The sky above Eris 9 turned blood red the day the fires came. Screams echoed across the once lush valleys where giant beasts once roamed. They weren't just wild animals. They were apex predators, guardians of balance, respected by even the strongest alien tribes. But now smoke choked the air and their bodies fell like stones from the heavens. Karel stood at the edge of the cliff, her silver-scaled armor stained with ash. Her breath came slow and heavy as she cradled the last two cubs of her kind. Their mother had died shielding them, taking a direct strike from a plasma cannon. Karel had fought off 5 drones with only a blade. She was bleeding from her shoulder, but the cubs whimpered in her arms, still alive. That was all that mattered. She had sworn an oath, not to her species, not even to her queen, but to the old bloodline. The beasts were sacred. The cubs were more than symbols of power. They were history, legacy, hope, and they were being hunted, not just by poachers, but by the syndicate. The war had started silently, under layers of treaties and lies, but it had exploded overnight, and the first victims were always the ones without a voice. She climbed down the rocks with care, shielding the cubs with her body. Her communications device crackled. Static, then a faint voice. Survivors detected. Near Sector 7. Life signs faint. Requesting assistance. Karel froze. It wasn't her people's frequency. It was an alien voice, one she had only heard in war briefings, human. She had seen them on the battlefield, strangely soft-skinned, no claws, no venom, just fragile bones and loud machines. But she had also seen one take a full blast to the chest and keep walking. Another pulled a wounded ally out of a firestorm, ignoring his own burning limbs. Humans didn't make sense. And yet, they terrified the syndicate. That said everything. She hid in a cave behind a waterfall, using the moisture to cool the cubs' fevers. The bigger one had cracked ribs. The smaller one wouldn't open its eyes. She knew basic medical training, but not enough. They needed healing. Real care. Not alien tech. Not battlefield medkits. Something deeper. Something that understood life. Not just war. Outside, engines roared, not syndicate style, sleeker, smoother. A soft hiss, not a scream, a human shuttle. It hovered, scanned, then slowly descended. Karel grabbed her blade. If they had come to finish the job, she'd make. Sure, they didn't leave breathing, but the figure who stepped out wasn't armed. He wore no armor, only a sealed white suit with glowing seams. He raised both hands. "I'm not here to fight," he said, his voice calm. "I'm Dr. Elias Kaur, geneticist. I received your distress call. I tracked the biosignatures." Karel didn't speak. She didn't trust easily. Not anymore. He slowly crouched. His eyes met hers, then drifted to the cubs. "Oh God," he whispered, moving closer but not touching. "Are they what I think they are?" Karel didn't reply. "They shouldn't even exist anymore," he added, "but they do, and they're dying." She finally spoke. "I know." He looked at her, more curious than afraid. "Let me help, please. I've studied them my whole life. I might be the only one who can save them." Her grip on the blade didn't loosen, but her gaze shifted to the smaller cub, now wheezing, faintly. "I don't trust humans," she said. Elias nodded. "That's fine. Just let me earn it. One breath at a time." There was something about his voice, not his words but the way he said them, like he truly meant them, like he cared. And Karel hadn't heard that in a long time. The cave trembled as distant explosions echoed again. The war wasn't over. But something new had started. Not an alliance. Not a peace treaty. A chance. And Karel had to decide before the next sun rose if she would let a human hold the future of her kind in his hands. Karel watched Elias as he carefully opened a compact medical kit. His movements were slow, respectful. He did not reach for the cubs without permission. Instead, he unfolded a scanner and set it gently near the smallest one. The device hummed softly, casting pale blue light across the stone floor. Elias didn't flinch when the bigger cub growled faintly in warning. Low oxygen levels. Internal trauma. Dehydration, he whispered, more to himself than to Carell. They don't have much time. Carell didn't need a machine to tell her that. She could feel it in the rhythm of their breaths, the sluggishness of their tails. These weren't just cubs. They were the final pieces of a world already gone. Her world. Your kind hunted them once, she said coldly. I know, Elias answered, still not looking at her. But not all of us agreed with that. Some of us tried to stop it. I joined the Preservation Corps the moment I could. Carell had never heard of such a group. She assumed most humans only came to Aris 9 for war or conquest. She had lost 2 sisters during a human assault near the equator ridges. Still, Elias hadn't raised a weapon. He hadn't even worn armor, just a med pack and desperate eyes. He lifted a small vial and prepared an injection. Carell's blade was at his throat before he could blink. What is that? She growled. A nutrient stim. It's standard emergency protocol for biocollapse. I'll take a dose first if it makes you feel safer. She didn't move the blade. Elias calmly jabbed the needle into his own arm, pressing the liquid in. He winced slightly, then exhaled. See? He said with a faint smile, still standing. Carell hesitated. Then slowly she lowered the blade. Elias turned to the cub and gently injected the serum into its thigh. The creature whimpered but didn't resist. A moment passed, then 2. The cub's chest rose, a little stronger. Its tongue flicked once, a breath deeper than the last. It's working, Elias said softly. Carell felt something strange rise in her chest. Not hope, not yet, but maybe the shadow of it. Suddenly the scanner beeped. Sharply, Elias frowned. They're tracking us, he said. Syndicate drones, probably picked up the biosignals too. Carell's head snapped toward the cave entrance. She could already hear the whine of metallic wings. How many? She asked. 3, maybe 4. But they're scouts. If they report back, the full force will follow. Carell didn't wait. She handed the bigger cub to Elias, who grunted from its weight. Then she wrapped the smaller one in her cloak and strapped it across her back. Her wound screamed, but she ignored the pain. She had run through worse. Can your ship fly? She asked. Elias nodded. Short range only. We'll have to make it to a relay station to call for evac. Then we run, Carell said. They burst from the cave just as the first drone crested the trees. It screeched and dove, opening, fire. Carell rolled behind a fallen pillar of stone shielding the cubs. Elias ducked beside her, breathing hard. I have a jammer, he panted. It can block their signal for 30 seconds. But after that, they'll swarm, she finished. Elias met her eyes. Can you fight? She pulled a short spear from her back and flicked it open. It crackled with energy. I don't run from battle, she replied. Good, he said, holding up a small glowing disc. Because I'm not great at running either. He threw the jammer high. It burst into static light, and the drones paused midair, confused. Carell sprang forward, spear flashing, and struck the nearest drone. Sparks flew. Another shot toward Elias, but he swung his med pack like a hammer, smashing its eye. They fought side by side, not as enemies, but not quite allies. When the last drone crashed into the dirt, Carell dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Elias helped her up. Can your kind always fight like that? He asked, impressed. Carell looked at him. No, she said, but for them, I would fight an army. In the distance, the sky pulsed red again. The war hadn't ended. But something else had begun, and neither of them were ready for what would come next. The shuttle trembled as it lifted off from the forest floor. Smoke curled from its landing gear where one of the syndicate drones had struck. Inside, Carell sat on the floor, arms wrapped tightly around the cubs. She didn't trust the metal walls. She didn't trust the hum of human machines. but she trusted even less what waited outside. Elias sat across from her, tapping quickly on a floating holographic screen. His face was pale and damp with sweat, but his hands moved with confidence. He was plotting a route to the nearest relay station. One burst transmission, and maybe help would come. "We'll have to stay low," he said. "The syndicate will. Scan for heat signatures will be shadows." Carell said nothing. Her attention was on the smaller cub. It had stopped wheezing, but its eyes still wouldn't open. She brushed her hand gently across its snout. Cold. Too cold. Even now, she feared it was slipping away. Elias noticed. He paused his work and opened another case beside him. Inside were vials wrapped in soft foam glowing faint blue. "This is gene-resonant plasma," he explained. "Synthesized from old Apex DNA samples. Illegal tech, actually. I made it myself." She narrowed her eyes. "You created this for them?" Elias nodded. "I always believed they weren't just predators. They were the key to understanding this world. A living link to something older than any of us. I wasn't supposed to study them, but I did, and I'm not going to let them vanish." He didn't ask for permission this time. He simply moved forward, placed the vial into a small injector, and gently inserted it into the cub's spine. The moment the serum entered, the cub twitched. Then its eyes fluttered open for the first time in days. Carell leaned forward, mouth parting in shock. The cub blinked at her, weak but aware. It gave a small sound, a sound she hadn't heard in weeks. A whimper of life. She didn't realize she was shaking until Elias placed a blanket over her shoulders. "They're fighters," he said. "Just like you." Carell looked at him for a long moment. "You're not like other humans." "I get that a lot," he replied with a tired smile. But peace never lasted long. An alarm blared from the shuttle's console. Elias jumped to his feet and scanned the display. "Syndicate frigate, it's locking onto our position." "How?" she demanded. "They must have tagged the drones we destroyed. Smart tech. They're following residual energy. Can we outrun them?" Elias shook his head. "This isn't a warship, it's a science vessel with barely enough shields to handle a storm." Carell rose, securing both cubs into a padded chamber in the back. She strapped in the smaller, one carefully brushing its ear. "We won't let them be taken," she said firmly. Elias stared at her. "You'd die for them. I was born to protect them." He moved toward the pilot seat. "Then let's not die yet." The shuttle dove sharply, cutting through the atmosphere, weaving between mountain ridges and thunderclouds. Syndicate fire rained behind them, scorching the sky. Elias shouted coordinates to the autonav, while Carell used the rear turret to blast away incoming hunter drones. The sky lit up in violet and orange. One beam clipped the rear engine. The shuttle spun, alarms wailing. Elias fought the controls, teeth clenched. Carell held the cub chamber steady as sparks fell from above. "We're losing altitude," Elias shouted. "Then land us somewhere we can fight," Carell yelled back. He nodded and spotted a valley ahead, a crater from an old impact zone. If they could land there, the rock would shield them from scans. It was risky, but it was all they had. The shuttle slammed into the ground, skidding across stone and dirt. Panels burst, lights flickered, then silence. Carell staggered to her feet. Her body ached. Elias lay near the control panel, groaning. She reached for her weapon, scanning the tree line. The syndicate wouldn't be far behind, but this time, they wouldn't just be fighting for survival. They'd be fighting for the last hope of an entire species. Smoke drifted through the shattered cockpit. The shuttle's lights flickered once, then died completely. Carell pulled Elias out of the broken frame, his arm bleeding, his suit torn near the ribs. He coughed, but he was conscious. The cubs were safe, bruised, shaken, but alive inside the impact chamber. Outside, the wind blew dry dust across the crater's edge. The sky was too quiet. "They'll send a ground squad," Carell said, scanning the horizon. "They won't let us go now." Elias leaned against a stone and wiped blood from his cheek. "We have less than an hour before they arrive. Maybe less." Carell checked the spear on her back. It had cracked at the tip. She dropped it, and picked up a fallen syndicate rifle from the wreckage. She didn't like human weapons, but now wasn't the time for pride. Elias opened a med kit and tried to seal the worst of his wounds. His hands trembled. "You shouldn't have come here," Carol said quietly. "I had to," Elias replied. "They were calling to me. Not with words, but with silence, the kind that only comes before extinction." She stared at him. It was hard to understand how someone like him existed, a human who valued life without needing it to serve his purpose. He glanced at the cubs. "We have one more chance." Carel frowned. "What chance?" "I installed a portable field lab in the rear pod. If I can get power running, I can stabilize their DNA, lock in their structure, give them a future, even if we fall here." "And if we don't fall?" Elias smiled weakly. "Then they get that future with us in it." She didn't answer, but she helped him stand, and together they limped to the rear pod. The lab was still mostly intact. Glass tubes lined the walls, glowing softly. A backup generator buzzed as Elias forced it online. While he worked, Carel built a perimeter. She scattered debris to create choke points. She set fire markers that would signal movement. She crouched on a ledge and waited. Then her ears twitched. The sound came not from the sky but the ground. Tremors. Vehicles. She turned to Elias. "They're here." He didn't stop working. "Give me 10 minutes. "You might only get 5. Carel dropped from the ledge and took position. Near the entrance, her body was weak. Her shoulder throbbed, but her grip was steady. The syndicate arrived without a sound. Cloaked, precise, cold. They moved like shadows, but Carel had fought them before. She counted 7 at first. Then more. Dozens. She fired the first shot. 2 fell instantly. A third ducked and vanished. Behind the ridge, Carel rolled behind a rock as laser fire scorched the dirt beside her. She didn't back away. Every second she bought was another breath for the cubs, another breath for their kind. Elias shouted from inside. "Sequence. Locked. Finalizing genetic imprint." Carel grunted and leapt from cover, slashing a trooper with the syndicate rifle's butt. She twisted, blocked another strike, then jammed the trigger. Her shot lit the canyon red. More enemies poured in. They weren't just soldiers. They were erasers. Trained not to fight, but to end. Carel knew she couldn't hold them all. Suddenly, the air cracked. A pulse of light exploded from the pod. Blue and silver surged across the rocks. The syndicate forces froze, confused. From the pod center, a shield had bloomed. Elias stood inside it, face pale but eyes bright. "The cubs are stabilized," he called out. "Their DNA is encoded. They'll live. Even if we don't." Carel smiled, even as blood trickled from her lip. "Good. Now let's make sure we do." The shield wouldn't hold forever. But it had changed something. Not just in the cubs, in the air. In Elias. In her. This wasn't just a fight anymore, it was a stand, and they weren't done yet. The energy shield flickered under heavy fire. Each time a syndicate plasma blast hit it, the outer edge rippled like water, but it held. Inside, Elias moved quickly between machines, fingers darting across holographic controls. The stabilization chamber sealed around the cubs, locking their new genetic code in place. They were safe, for now. Outside, Carel's body moved with instinct. Her blade was gone, her shoulder was torn, but she fought on. The ground beneath her boots was stained with black syndicate blood. More enemies kept coming, like waves trying to drown her. She didn't retreat, not for a second. Inside the pod, Elias opened a comm channel on emergency frequencies. The signal was weak, but it had to be enough. "This is Dr. Elias Core, human geneticist. I'm transmitting from Eris 9. We've secured the last surviving Apex cubs, requesting emergency extraction. Enemy forces incoming. Coordinates attached. Please respond." There was only static. Carel fell back behind the shield, breathing hard. Her arms were covered in scrapes and a fresh cut ran across her brow. She wiped the blood with the back of her hand and looked at Elias. They'll break through soon. I know, he said. But I finished the sequence. The cubs, they're stronger now. Faster healing, better immunity. I built in their future. Carell lowered herself beside the stabilization pod and gently touched the younger cub's fur. Its chest rose and fell smoothly now. The fever was gone. You gave them a chance, she whispered. You gave them protection, Elias said back. We did this together. But the moment was short. A new sound echoed through the canyon, louder, heavier. The syndicate had sent a warden unit, a walking tank with twin plasma cannons and armored legs. It wasn't hunting, it was erasing. Elias's eyes widened. We can't stop that. Carell stood, teeth clenched. Maybe we don't need to stop it. Maybe we just need to distract it. He grabbed her arm. You'll die, and they'll live. That's not how this ends, Elias said. She hesitated. Then something unexpected happened. From above, a massive roar tore through the clouds. A sonic boom shattered the silence, and a sleek human military ship cut through the sky. It was dark gray with glowing blue engines. The emblem on its side was that of the Preservation Corps. A voice came through Elias's comm. Dr. Corps, this is Captain Rena of the Corps. We received your signal. Reinforcements inbound, preparing airstrike. Keep your head down. Carell blinked. You told them? I told everyone, Elias said. I didn't care who answered, as long as someone did. Explosions rocked the far ridge as the ship opened fire. Syndicate forces scattered. The warden turned and began charging its main cannon. But before it could fire, 2 missile pods from the airship struck it straight in the back. The ground shook as it collapsed, metal twisting into flame. Carell fell to her knees, stunned. Elias helped her up. We're not done yet. Get to the shuttle bay. They're lowering a carrier line. Carell didn't argue. She moved quickly, lifting the smaller cub while Elias cradled the larger one. The carrier line dropped into the crater, and magnetic clamps clicked into place. A soft hum signaled their lift. As they rose, Carell looked down at the battlefield. The syndicate wasn't retreating. More ships would come, but now the galaxy knew. Now people were watching. She turned to Elias. Why did you really come to Eris 9? He looked at her, eyes tired but full of fire. To prove something. What? That sometimes humans don't destroy, sometimes we rebuild. The pod doors closed behind them as the ship soared into the clouds. Below, the battlefield shrank into silence. The cubs huddled together in warmth and safety. But Carell knew this wasn't the end. This was only the beginning of a much bigger fight. The human ship soared through Eris 9's upper sky, quiet above the clouds. Inside the medical chamber, Carell stood beside the recovery pod where both cubs rested. Their hearts were stronger now. Their wounds were healing fast. For the first time in weeks, she allowed her body to relax. Elias returned from the bridge, his face calm but focused. He carried 2 cups of heated broth, one for her, one for himself. They said it'll be a few hours before we reach the core station, he said. Carell took the drink with a nod but didn't sip. She kept her eyes on the cubs. They've never left Eris 9, she said quietly. They'll be safe now, Elias replied. That's what matters. Carell finally turned to him. Safe in a cage? No, Elias said. Safe in open space, with a future, not a cage, a sanctuary. She studied him again. His face was strange to her, soft features, tired eyes, and kindness that never fit the stories she'd been told. For cycles, her people believed humans were destroyers, always taking, always hungry. But Elias had come with empty hands and full heart. He hadn't just saved the cubs. He had changed her belief in his entire kind. He leaned against the wall. You still don't trust us, do you? I trust what I've seen, she said. But I don't forget what we've lost. Elias nodded. You shouldn't. Silence passed between them, heavy but not hostile. After a while, she asked, what will they become? Elias looked at the cubs. They could grow into apex leaders, Peacekeepers, maybe even bring back the old ways of balance. If we let them. If we protect them. And what if someone tries to use them? Elias sighed. Then I fight with you, and we stop them. Carell raised an eyebrow. You? A soft-blooded scientist? I've fought before, he said. Not with blades, but with truth. Sometimes that's harder. The ship gave a small shudder as it entered orbit around a nearby moon. A large station floated there, ringed with soft white lights. It wasn't a war base. It looked more like a hospital, calm, quiet, clean. As they docked, a group of Preservation Corps staff waited. Medics, biologists, and officials stood in line, eyes wide when they saw the two apex cubs cradled in protective fields. A woman in deep blue uniform stepped forward. I'm Commander Lee. Dr. Corr, you've done the impossible. Elias gave a small bow. We did. This is Carell, the last living guardian of the apex kind. Lee bowed to Carell, respectfully. Then we owe you a great debt. Carell didn't bow, she only spoke. I don't want your debt, I want a promise. Lee looked at her curious. What kind of promise? That they will not be studied like tools, that they will be raised with care, that no chain, visible or hidden, will ever be placed on them. Lee hesitated, then nodded. You have my word. Carell turned to Elias. And yours? He placed a hand over his heart. I give you more than my word. I give you my life if that's what it takes. Later that night, Carell stood alone in the observation deck, watching the stars. Elias joined her quietly, hands in his coat. You know, he said, they're already asking for public rights to name the cubs. The Corps wants to make it a galaxy-wide event. Carell scowled. They are not pets. I know, he replied, but stories change minds. Maybe if the galaxy sees them not as monsters but as miracles, things might change. She didn't answer, but her gaze softened. Outside the glass, a nearby comet left a glowing trail across the sky. For the first time she wondered what life would be like beyond the trees of Eris 9. For her, for the cubs, and maybe, for her and the human who refused to run. Carell watched the cubs sleep beneath the soft glow of the preservation chamber. Their breathing was steady now. No fever, no tremble. They were strong, stronger than before. But even here, inside a station wrapped in shields and promises, she couldn't relax. She had lived through too many betrayals to believe in peace so easily. Elias stood nearby, speaking with a group of Preservation Corps scientists. They were excited, too excited. They talked about the cubs like puzzles and wonders, not like lives. Carell's eyes narrowed. Later, she confronted Elias alone. They talk about the cubs like they're not real, like they're just data. Elias shook his head. They're just curious, they don't mean harm. You said this place was safe. It is, he insisted. I made sure of it. Commander Lee signed protection orders. No tests, no removal from the chamber without your consent. She looked into his eyes. But orders can change. Elias looked away for a moment. You're right to worry, but I won't let that happen. Carell walked toward the observation deck. The stars stared back at her like silent judges. She felt lost in their cold beauty. Back on Eris 9, she had known her role: guardian, hunter, fighter. But here, on this floating station, what was she? A relic? A reminder? A threat? Suddenly, a soft alarm buzzed in her earpiece. She turned quickly. The cub chamber, one of the access points, had been opened. She ran. The hallways flashed red as she approached. 2 guards stood by the door, confused. We didn't open it, one said. Carell didn't answer. She burst inside and found one of the cubs missing from the pod, the younger one. Where is he? She growled. A soft voice came from behind. I moved him. It was a human, not Elias. A core scientist named Dr. Venn. Older, slim, always quiet. He stood near the side with a small scanning device in his hand. "What did you do?" Karel demanded. "Nothing harmful," he replied. "Just a small genetic sample, for safety, in case anything happens." Karel stepped forward. "Put him back, now." Dr. Venn didn't move. "You don't understand what they are. Their DNA could lead to breakthroughs, healing, strength, even cures. This is bigger than just survival." "They are not tools," she said. "They are hope," Venn replied. "And sometimes hope must be controlled." Karel's fist slammed into his chest, knocking him to the floor. She picked up the cub gently and returned him to the chamber. The baby made a soft cry but quickly settled once inside the warm light again. By the time Elias arrived, she was already standing guard at the door. "What happened?" he asked. She didn't speak at first. Then, coldly, she said, "Your people already tried to take what doesn't belong to them." Elias turned and saw Dr. Venn coughing on the ground. His face fell. "I didn't know." "You should have," Karel snapped. "I swear I would never—" "I believe you," she said, "but you're not the only one with access. And that means this place is no longer safe." Elias walked toward her slowly. "What will you do?" "I'm leaving. I'll take the cubs. Go somewhere hidden. A moon no one watches. I know places." He looked devastated. "Don't go." "I have to. They only live because I didn't trust anyone." Elias was silent. Karel turned to the window. The stars hadn't changed, but something inside her had. She had begun to trust, just a little. And that trust had almost cost her everything. Still, before she left, she whispered something soft. "If you truly meant what you said about fighting with truth, then prove it. Not to me, to them." She held his gaze one last time. Then she walked away, the cubs resting quietly behind her. And Elias stood in silence, already deciding what he would do next. Karel moved through the quiet hangar, her steps light but firm. The cubs were secured in a small transport ship, hidden under thermal blankets surrounded by protective shields Elias had helped install. They blinked up at her with sleepy eyes, unaware of the decision she had made. She looked around the vast steel walls, the glowing lights, the armed guards on the upper levels. This place had promised safety, but safety had proven false. She wouldn't wait for betrayal to come again. Just as she reached the control panel to open the bay doors, a voice echoed from behind. "You're not going to get far without this." Elias held out a black crystal card. It was the clearance key. Without it, her ship would be stopped the moment it left the dock. She stared at him. "I thought you'd try to stop me," she said. "I thought I would too," Elias replied. "But then I realized something. You're right." He stepped closer, placing the clearance card gently on the edge of the console. "They don't deserve your trust, not yet, but I still want to earn it." Karel didn't speak. Elias took a slow breath. "After you left the med chamber, I filed charges against Dr. Venn. I exposed the sample theft and submitted it to the Core's Ethics Council. He's been removed, his files locked." "Too late," she said. "Maybe, but I also did something else. I transferred ownership of their status to you." She blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means you are officially their guardian under core law. You decide what happens. No one can touch them without your permission, not even me." Karel stepped back. That kind of power, handed over without a fight, was rare. "I won't. Use it lightly," she said. "I know," Elias replied. The cubs chirped softly. The smaller one yawned, pressing its head gently into the other's side. They looked peaceful, but the galaxy beyond the station was not. Karel looked at Elias one last time. "I'm taking them somewhere far, hidden, no labs, no scientists." "I understand, and I won't return." Elias nodded slowly. "I didn't expect you to, but I'll be here." working to change this place to make sure it deserves beings like them. She watched him for a long moment. In the short time they had known each other, he had risked his life, his name, and now his future. He had shown her what very few ever did: honor. Without another word, she stepped into the ship and sealed the hatch. The engines came alive with a soft hum. The bay doors slid open, revealing the stars beyond. Elias stood alone as the ship lifted into the air and vanished into the dark sky. 3 months passed. The station's walls were no longer filled with whispers of exploitation. After the scandal, the core leadership changed. New protocols were set. Transparency increased, not overnight. But the shift had begun. Elias continued his work quietly. He gave no interviews. He published no papers about the cubs. He simply kept working on ways to protect what was left of rare life across the galaxy. One morning, as he entered his lab, he found a small package on his desk. Inside was a feather, not from a bird, from a cub. Long, dark silver, with edges that shimmered blue when touched by light. Attached to it was a single message: "They are growing well. The wind is strong here. They run free." It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. Elias held the feather carefully, a smile forming on his face. They had made it, and somewhere far beyond scanners and satellites, the last of an ancient species ran wild across untamed grasslands. Because one warrior never stopped protecting them, and one human never stopped believing they deserved to live.